If you've ever agreed to something over the phone while half asleep and regretted it later, welcome to my world. My uncle's voice crackled through the receiver at 3:13 a.m. on a Tuesday. Just need you to watch the farm, Danny. A week, maybe two. No big deal. I rubbed the crust out of my eyes and gave the world's dumbest response. Sure, Uncle Ray, sounds peaceful. Turns out, peaceful isn't the word I'd use now. Not unless your idea of peace includes animate scarecrows and cows with too many teeth. I arrived Thursday morning. The place was tucked in the middle of absolutely nowhere, rural Iowa, but it might as well have been an alien planet. Acres of corn surrounded the house like a moat. The farmhouse itself was old and leaning slightly, like it was tired of standing. Paint peeled in long strips. The barn looked like it had been built by a drunk carpenter in a hurry. Uncle Ray wasn't there. Just a single yellow sticky note on the screen door that read, Fridge. Inside the farmhouse, the air smelled of old wood, hay, and that faint tinge of something earthy, like mushrooms or wet burlap. The fridge hummed quietly in the corner of the kitchen. I walked over and saw it. A single sheet of paper taped to the fridge door with faded masking tape. At the top, written in red marker, Rules to stay alive. Follow them. I chuckled. That's not ominous at all. I read the list. Number 1, lock the barn before sunset. Number 2, feed the scarecrow at midnight. Yes, feed it. Number 3, if the cornfield whispers, don't listen. Number 4, if the rooster crows after sunset, lock every door. Number 5, stay out of the root cellar no matter what you hear from it. Number 6, the weather vane points toward trouble. Don't go where it points. Number 7, every Friday, dig a hole near the oak tree. Leave some meat. Don't look inside. Number 8, at dusk, count the cows. If there's one more than yesterday, don't feed it. Number 9, if the scarecrow points toward the woods, something's escaped. Lock everything. Number 10, don't answer the phone after 11 p.m. Number 11, if the scarecrow disappears from the field, wait inside. He always comes back by morning. Okay, Ray, I muttered. You've officially lost it. But even as I said it, a shiver crawled down my spine like a centipede. There was something about the handwriting. It wasn't shaky or rushed. It was firm, determined, like a man who knew what would happen if you didn't follow the list. I figured it was a joke or some sort of, twisted rural hazing ritual, farm version of cabin fever. Either way, I wasn't about to let my imagination run away with me. That first day I tried to keep it normal, took inventory of the supplies, checked the barn, counted 9 cows, 2 black, 7 brown. One had a milky white eye and drooled like a busted faucet. I thought about naming them, Betsy, Moodana, Sirloin. I'm a dad joke machine under stress, what can I say? The sun dipped low around 7:30 p.m. A kind of orange light settled across the field and everything went quiet, unnaturally quiet. No wind, no bugs, just the hum of the fridge and the creak of old wood. I figured I'd humor my uncle and lock the barn. As I turned the latch, I thought I heard a low scraping sound from within, like hay being dragged. I waited, silence. Inside the house, I microwaved a can of chili and settled in on the dusty couch. At 11:59 p.m., the clock on the wall ticked over, midnight. I stood up, laughing nervously. Right, feed the scarecrow, can't forget that. I walked out with a chunk of stale bread, figuring this would make a good story when I got back home. The scarecrow was out in the eastern field, perched up on a wooden post like he owned the place. A burlap sack for a head, patchwork flannel shirt, straw wrists. I held the bread up like an offering. Here you go, champ. Then I swear to you, its head turned. Not much, just an inch, just enough. And that's when I stopped laughing. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who scares easily. I once went camping in the Rockies with nothing but a knife, a tarp, and a can of beans, and that was on purpose. But when the scarecrow moved, even slightly, something ancient and instinctual in me flared up. I backed away slowly like it was a bear I'd accidentally made eye contact with. I even did that awkward, not-looking, not-running pace people do when pretending everything's normal. Back inside the house, I locked the door, drew the curtains, and checked the fridge rules again. Rule number 2, feed the scarecrow at midnight. Yes, feed it. I did, I muttered. Technically, bread's food, that counts. I tried to sleep after that, really did. But the creaks in the house seemed louder. At one point, I swear I heard something dragging across the porch. I told myself it was raccoons. That worked for a whole 5 seconds until I remembered raccoons don't wear flannel. By morning, the world looked normal again. I even laughed a little. Maybe I'd been tired, overthinking, imagining things. The mind plays tricks, especially in isolation. That's what I kept telling myself as I drank a questionable cup of instant coffee that tasted like wet cardboard and despair. I decided to inspect the scarecrow again in daylight, mostly to prove to myself it hadn't moved. I crossed the field, the grass still wet with dew. Birds chirped overhead like they hadn't just abandoned me to evil 12 hours ago. The scarecrow was in the same spot, same head tilt, same torn shirt, same straw wrists. Except the bread was gone. I didn't like that. Not because I thought it was weird that something had eaten it, but because the post had scratch marks at the base, like claws or fingers, or maybe something in between. Probably raccoons, I said out loud. Raccoons with a taste for moldy carbs and a flair for dramatics. I went back inside and decided to just get through the day. I checked the barn, counted the cows again. Still 9. One of the brown ones, who I'd decided to call Chewbacca due to its grunts, looked at me a little too long, but maybe she was just bored. Or judging my fashion sense. Around noon, I tried calling Uncle Ray, straight to voicemail. "Hey, Uncle Ray," I said into the phone. "Just wanted to say, what the hell, man? If this is some kind of weird farmer hazing ritual, you got me. Ha ha. Real funny. Also, when was the last time the scarecrow moved? Asking for a friend." I hung up and immediately felt dumb. The rest of the day was uneventful until about 6:45 p.m. That's when the cornfield started whispering. It was subtle at first, just a soft rustle, like the wind, except the air was still. I walked to the window, looking out at the tall stalks. They moved, not wildly, not in any real pattern, but in waves, like something big was walking just out of sight. Then I heard it. My name. "Daniel, Daniel, come here." It was faint, familiar. It sounded like my mom, and my mom's been dead for 4 years. I backed away from the window so hard I knocked over a lamp. Rule number 3, if the cornfield whispers, don't listen. I turned on the radio and cranked it up to drown it out. Static and country music mixed like a haunted rodeo. Better than voices from the dead, though. The whispering lasted for about 10 minutes. Then it just stopped. No fade out. Just gone. I made myself another chilly dinner, checked every window and door, and locked the barn. Nothing dragged from within this time, but I didn't stick around long enough to listen either. I threw the bolt, sprinted back, and double-locked the front door like I was preparing for a zombie invasion. At midnight, I returned to the field. This time I brought a slice of leftover pork chop. I didn't speak, just placed the meat at the scarecrow's feet and backed away slowly. It didn't move. I went back to the house, relieved, sat down on the couch, pulled the blanket over me. The phone rang. I looked at the clock. 10:59 p.m. I stared at it like it was a bomb. It rang again, 11 o'clock. Then silence. 1 minute passed. I exhaled. Then it rang again, 11:01. I didn't answer. I stared at the phone like it had grown teeth. My heart thudded in my ears. I counted the rings. 5, 6, 7. On the 8th ring, it stopped. Silence again. I waited, holding my breath, convinced it would start back up. But it didn't. Just the gentle creak of the farmhouse settling and the soft whir of the ceiling fan spinning overhead like nothing had happened. I sat there for a long while. I even got up and unplugged the phone from the wall, because apparently that was still a thing here. Then I tried to sleep on the couch, blanket pulled over me like I was a 6-year-old hiding from the boogeyman, which in this case might not have been too far off. Morning came like a sigh of relief. Sunlight filtered in through the dusty windows, turning everything a soft amber. For the first time, I felt like maybe I could handle this gig. Just follow the rules, don't get curious, don't do anything stupid. I made coffee and this time added extra sugar to drown out the taste of sadness. Then I decided it was time to check the cows again, mostly just to reassure myself that they were still cows and hadn't grown opposable thumbs overnight. I trudged to the barn, opened the double doors, and stood there counting out loud like I was on some twisted game show. 1, 2, 3, 4. 9, still 9. Chewbacca stared at me again. Her mouth hung open like she wanted to say something, but didn't quite know the words. "Look," I told her, "if you're going to start quoting scripture or singing show tunes, I'm out." She blinked. I went about checking the feed, topping off their water, and avoiding stepping in anything questionable. The barn smelled the way you'd expect a barn to smell, like hay, sweat, and manure with just a hint of existential dread. It wasn't until I was heading back to the house that I noticed something weird. The rooster was standing on the porch railing. That might not sound weird, but it was around 5:30 p.m. The sun hadn't set yet, but it was getting close. And the rooster was just standing there, still as a statue, head cocked sideways. Then it crowed. And not just once, it crowed 3 times. Rule number 4, if the rooster crows after sunset, lock every door. The sun hadn't dipped below the horizon yet, technically, but it was close enough that my brain yelled, "gray area," and my legs yelled, "run." I bolted up the porch stairs, nearly tripped over the chicken, and slammed the door shut behind me. I locked the front door, then the back, then the side door that I'm still not entirely sure where it leads. Windows? Check. Deadbolts? Check. Couch barricade? Check. The rooster was still out there, just standing on the porch like a little feathered omen. "You okay out there, buddy?" I asked through the door. "You better not be possessed. I'm not spiritually insured." That's when I heard it, the sound of hooves on wood. I turned toward the back window, the one facing the barn. One of the cows was on the porch, not next to the porch, not behind the porch, on the porch. It just stood there, looking at me through the glass. No expression because, cows, but something in its posture didn't sit right. Its body was too still, like it had never blinked in its life. I blinked instead, and when I opened my eyes it was gone. I ran through the house like a madman, checking every window and door. Nothing. No cows on porches, no scarecrows on the move, no whispers in the corn. I sank to the floor in the kitchen, right in front of the fridge, and looked up at the list again, tried to commit every word to memory. My mind kept circling back to one thing. Why all the rules? Who writes 11 rules for surviving a farm? Then I realized something else. There was space beneath number 11, just enough room for one more line. And the masking tape didn't look old. It looked like someone had changed the list recently. That night I watched the sun dip beneath the horizon. I counted the cows again, 9, still 9. I double-checked the barn lock, and when midnight came, I fed the scarecrow half a chicken thigh I'd cooked badly and didn't feel like eating. It didn't move this time, but the rooster crowed again. 3 times. I didn't sleep that night, not really. I hovered in that twilight zone between sleep and alert, the kind where your brain plays little games with you. Every creak of the house became a footstep. Every gust of wind outside became breathing. I half expected to find the scarecrow sitting on the couch beside me, holding a remote. At some point around 3 a.m. I started hearing it, a soft thudding, dull and distant, from beneath the floorboards. I sat up slowly, listening hard. Thud, pause, thud, then something else, a faint dragging sound like burlap sliding across concrete. I didn't want to admit it, but I knew exactly where it was coming from. The root cellar. Rule number 5, stay out of the root cellar no matter what you hear from it. I wanted to ignore it, truly, but that's the thing about creepy noises. They don't go away just because you cover your ears and pretend you're deaf. No, they get louder when you pretend they're not real. It's like the house itself wants you to acknowledge it. I grabbed a flashlight and against every good instinct I've ever had, crept toward the door leading to the cellar. Not to open it, no sir, just to look at it, to make sure it was still shut. The door was at the end of the narrow hallway off the kitchen, thick wood, iron hinges, a single keyhole crusted with rust. The sound stopped the moment I got within 5 feet of it. I stood there, my heart thumping loud enough to drown out thought. Then a voice came from the other side. It wasn't clear, not at first, muffled, like someone speaking with their mouth pressed against cloth, but I made out the words anyway. "Danny, Please, it's dark down here. I froze. It was my voice. I turned and walked away without hesitation. You don't need to be a genius to know that if something in a root cellar is mimicking you at 3 in the morning, it doesn't want to be Facebook friends. I dragged the heaviest chair I could find and jammed it under the cellar door handle. Then I taped a note to it. Nope. By the time the sun came up, I felt like I'd aged a decade. My hands shook pouring coffee. My eyes burned from lack of sleep. And I was starting to realize that I wasn't just babysitting a weird farm. This place was alive, and it had rules for a reason. I spent the day doing normal things in a completely abnormal mindset. I fed the cows, yes, still 9, watered the plants, attempted to mow the lawn before realizing the mower didn't have blades, which, I have to admit, felt like a metaphor for my life at the moment. Late in the afternoon, I decided to walk the perimeter of the field, get some air, clear my head, be anywhere that wasn't within 10 feet of that damn cellar door. The cornfield looked off, not visibly, not like something obvious, just off, like the rows weren't as straight, like the shadows between the stalks had grown teeth. At one point I saw movement deep inside the rows, just a flicker, a shape darting across an opening, but when I looked again, nothing. I turned around about to head back toward the house when I saw it, the weather vane. It sat atop the barn roof, spinning slowly. The wind was calm, not a leaf stirred, but the vane twirled like it had a mind of its own. After a few rotations, it stopped, pointed due south toward the woods. Rule number 6, the weather vane points toward trouble. Don't go where it points. Trouble. I had a barn full of mute cows, a rooster with a faulty circadian rhythm, a talking cellar, and a scarecrow with opinions. And now weather vane trouble? I saluted the weather vane. Message received, staying my butt right here. That night I double-locked the doors again, left out a slice of meatloaf for the scarecrow, counted the cows, 9, still 9. I avoided the cellar entirely, but I swear, I heard myself humming a lullaby from the other side of the door. And I don't hum. I didn't know a weather vane could haunt you, but I learned something new that night. I couldn't stop glancing at it through the upstairs window, silhouetted against the moon like it was waiting for me to make a mistake. It hadn't moved since earlier. It still pointed south toward the tree line. I went to bed with every door locked, every curtain closed, and a baseball bat beside me. Not that I thought a bat would do much good against whatever was out there, but swinging it made me feel less like bait. I woke around 4 a.m. to a faint click. Like a latch, I bolted upright in bed. For a second, everything was dead quiet. Then came the creak of floorboards in the hallway. I grabbed the bat and crept toward the door, heart pounding in my chest like someone was playing drums in there. I paused, listened, another step, closer, closer, and then nothing. Just the sound of my own breath, quick and shallow. I flung the door open and found the hallway empty. Still, I followed it down to the kitchen where the air felt colder than it should have. Not ghost cold, just wrong, like the walls were holding their breath. And that's when I saw the muddy footprints leading from the back door to the fridge, boot prints, my size. Same tread pattern as the ones I wore every day, except mine were clean and by the door where I left them. I followed the muddy trail with my eyes. It stopped at the fridge. On the door, the list of rules still fluttered gently from the fridge fan kicking on. Nothing looked changed, but I couldn't bring myself to touch the handle. Instead, I backed away, slow and careful, like the kitchen was a wild animal that might bolt or bite. That morning, I didn't make coffee. I didn't eat. I just sat on the front porch in a chair with a rake in my lap like a deranged suburban warrior. When the sun hit its peak, I forced myself to do the daily cow count. 9 again. Except one of them had a fresh wound across its side, deep gash, bloody and still seeping. That wasn't there yesterday. I went into the barn and found claw marks on the inside of the door. Not scratchy little raccoon scuffs either. Long, deep, angry gouges like something had been trying to get out, or worse, something was out and had returned. The weather vane was spinning again when I looked up, spinning fast as if whipped by some invisible hurricane. And then it stopped. South again, same direction, same trees, the same part of the woods where the wind never blew and the grass didn't grow quite right. And just like that, I felt it. A pull. Nothing physical. More like a thought not my own. "Come look," it whispered inside my head. "Just peek. Just one step beyond the tree line." I didn't move. Instead, I walked back into the house and found the shotgun Uncle Ray had mounted above the fireplace. It was old, but it looked oiled and ready. I found 2 shells in a drawer labeled, "Do not use unless you want to live." Appreciated the clarity. I took the shotgun and walked straight to the edge of the woods. The air changed as I stepped closer, warmer, thicker. The sounds of the farm dulled behind me. No birds, no insects. Just a low, steady buzz in my ears like I was standing near power lines. The trees were packed tight. Their trunks gnarled like clenched fists. I raised the gun just in case and leaned forward, barely a foot over the threshold of branches. And then I saw them. Footprints. Not boot prints this time. Bare feet, long toes, deep arches, inhuman spacing. They led deeper into the trees, into a space where the light seemed to fade unnaturally fast. I took one photo with my phone, just one, and backed away. Once back on the porch, I looked at the picture. It was black, just pure black. Except for one detail. 2 small, reflective eyes in the middle of the frame, looking right at me. Friday arrived with the kind of dread normally reserved for dentist appointments or family reunions where someone always brings a ukulele. I'd been putting it off mentally, but there it was on the list, clear as day. Number 7, every Friday, dig a hole near the oak tree, leave some meat, don't look inside. Now, I've done a lot of questionable things in life. Ate gas station sushi, once tried to cut my own hair with a pair of office scissors, but digging a mystery pit and feeding it raw meat was shaping up to be a new low. Still, I wasn't in the mood to test fate. Everything on the list had proven deadly serious. Ignoring it wasn't brave, it was suicide with extra steps. I stood under the giant oak tree at the edge of the field just after lunch, shovel in hand and a thawed steak wrapped in tinfoil under my arm. The tree was the only one of its kind out there, big enough that it had probably been around since the Civil War, maybe even before people started naming things like Iowa. The ground beneath it was soft, spongy, like it wanted to be dug. I stabbed the shovel into the earth and started digging. The sun was high, my shirt was soaked, and the bugs were having a buffet on my neck. A couple feet in, the shovel struck something hard. I froze, not bone hard, not rock hard, metal. I leaned closer and wiped the dirt away. Just a glimpse. A rusted iron lid or hatch, circular, the edges worn down like it had been lifted many times. "Don't look inside," I muttered. I dropped the stake into the hole and started shoveling dirt back over it without another glance. Sweat dripped into my eyes, my arms burned. I finished up and tamped the last bit of soil flat with my boot. Then the ground pulsed, not shook, not rumbled, pulsed, like it had a heartbeat. Once, twice, then silence. I backed away slowly. I didn't need a thank you. I didn't need applause. I just needed that hole to stay closed and the thing under it to stay full. As I walked back, I could have sworn I heard something whisper my name, but the wind was blowing, and I had no interest in arguing with dirt. The rest of the day passed quietly, if you consider staring at the scarecrow through binoculars and checking cow head counts every hour. Quiet. Still 9. Still silent. The one with the gash was healing weird. The flesh around it looked patchy, like it was being stitched together by someone who'd only ever sewn human skin. I fed the scarecrow that night, this time with a slice of bologna, figuring he couldn't be that picky, and was halfway back to the house when I noticed it. The weather vane. Still, pointed at the oak. Something about that didn't sit right. Maybe it was supposed to stop once the offering was done. Maybe it was a warning that whatever I'd fed wasn't satisfied. Or maybe the weather vane just hated me personally. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if it learned to spell my name in semaphore. I went inside, locked everything, and placed the shotgun across my lap as I sat at the kitchen table. I stared at the rules again, memorizing every line. Number 8 caught my eye. At dusk, count the cows. If there's one more than yesterday, don't feed it. 9. Always 9. Unless... I ran to the back window. The sun had just touched the horizon. In the field, 10 cows stood. The 10th was jet black, too black. Not like fur black, void black, the kind of black that absorbs light. It didn't move like the others. It stood too still, watched too long, and when I squinted I realized something even worse. It didn't have eyes, just sockets, empty, dark, deep. I shut the blinds and backed away, heart racing. I didn't feed it, didn't even breathe near it. That night it stood at the edge of the yard the entire time I was awake, never moved, just waited. There are a few experiences in life that burn themselves into your memory, seeing your first shooting star, your first kiss, realizing you're staring at a cow-shaped entity from the void with no eyes and a hatred of physics. That last one was a first for me. The 10th cow stayed at the edge of the yard all night. I'd check the window every few minutes, and there it was, motionless, like a statue someone had carved from shadow and dread. The other cows kept their distance too, which was somehow even more disturbing. Cows are social, herd animals, but they wouldn't go near that thing. They clustered together at the far end of the pasture, visibly uncomfortable, tails twitching and eyes fixed on the newcomer. I didn't sleep that night, just paced the floor with a flashlight and the shotgun, jumping at every creak in the house. The void cow didn't move, not once, until sunrise. I was looking out the kitchen window when the first ray of sun spilled over the trees. That's when the 10th cow turned. Not walked, turned, like it had been on a lazy Susan and someone spun it around, and then it walked directly into the cornfield. I didn't follow it. I'm stupid, sure, but I'm not horror movie stupid. By the time I checked the field mid-morning, it was gone. No tracks, no bent stalks, no hint it had ever existed. Back to 9 cows. I breathed easier, at least until I saw the note on the fridge. It wasn't part of the rule list. Just a sticky note in unfamiliar handwriting pinned below the rules in dark ink. Good. You're learning. I stood there for a full minute, heart pounding in my throat. I hadn't heard anyone enter the house. I hadn't seen anyone leave, but someone had been here, recently, and they approved of me. Yay! That afternoon I walked the property twice, checked every lock, watched the scarecrow from every angle. It was still on the post, arms outstretched like a T-posing cryptid. I noticed something new. It had a small pouch sewn into its chest, a little square pocket, barely noticeable beneath the patchwork shirt. I didn't open it. I'm learning too. That night the rooster crowed again, not on the porch this time. I heard it from the barn. I checked the clock. 7:42 p.m. post-sunset, rule number 4. I locked the doors fast. As I slammed the back door shut, I caught sight of something through the trees. The scarecrow. Gone. Not on the post. Just vanished. I ran to the front door and flipped the porch light on. Nothing. The field was empty. I thought about opening the door, just for a second, just to see if he'd fallen over or something. But then I remembered rule number 11. If the scarecrow disappears from the field, wait inside. He always comes back by morning. I dragged the couch in front of the door, flipped the lights off, and sat in the dark with my back to the wall and the shotgun across my lap. Midnight came. I still hadn't fed the scarecrow. I held the sandwich I'd made, a turkey and mustard number, and walked to the front door. I didn't open it. I just slid the sandwich through the mail slot. A minute later I heard chewing. Not crunching, not nibbling. Chewing. Wet and deliberate. Then something sniffed, right up against the slot. A long, slow inhale, then words. Thanks, Danny. I fell backwards, hit the floor, and scrambled like a crab to the far wall. That was not the scarecrow's voice. That was my uncle's. But he was gone. Had been gone for days. No texts. No calls, no signs of life. At 6:03 a.m., I crept back to the window and peeked out. The scarecrow was back. Same pose, same stitched-up head. But now one arm pointed, not toward the field, not toward the cows, toward the woods. The scarecrow pointing at the woods was like being given a handwritten invitation to a horror show, and I was the star. Rule number 9. If the scarecrow points toward the woods, something's escaped. Lock everything. That rule didn't leave much wiggle room for interpretation. I sprinted to the barn, locked it tight, slammed the house doors shut, bolted the cellar, drew every curtain. then double-checked everything because paranoia had now fully set up shop in my brain, paying rent with anxiety and stale adrenaline. By the time I was done, I sat back in the living room, sweaty and panting. The only sound was the old grandfather clock in the hall, ticking like it was counting down to something terrible. I checked the fridge again. Still 11 rules, still taped with that old masking tape. The sticky note that had appeared the day before, "Good, you're learning," was gone. Had I imagined it, or had someone come back in and taken it? Either option made my skin crawl. I checked the attic for good measure. No raccoons, no murderers, just a whole lot of dust and a few cobwebs aggressive enough to qualify as wildlife. The sun began to sink, and I kept one eye on the scarecrow. It stayed pointed at the woods, didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood like a stitched-up prophet waiting for the apocalypse. That night I skipped dinner, didn't trust my stomach to hold anything down. Instead, I sat in the kitchen with the shotgun across my lap and a flashlight in my pocket. I watched the clock. 10:30 p.m., then 10:45, then 10:59. My hand hovered over the unplugged phone cord. I hadn't reconnected it since the first time it rang at 11:01. Part of me wanted to, just to see. Maybe if I heard the voice again it would prove something, maybe even give me a clue about what was happening. At 11 o'clock I plugged it in. At 11:01 it rang, no hesitation, no delay. One sharp bring cut through the house like a scream. I stood over the receiver, hand trembling, breath caught in my throat. Second ring, third. On the fourth I picked it up and said the dumbest thing possible. "Hello?" Silence. Then static, not regular static, wet static, like someone breathing underwater. And then came the voice. "Danny, it's me." My stomach turned ice cold. "Uncle Ray," I whispered. "Yes," it said, "I need your help." The voice was wrong, too smooth, like someone using vocal cords they'd only just borrowed. "What happened to you?" "I'm in the woods," it said. "They took me into the woods. You need to come. Follow the scarecrow. Bring your flashlight." I gripped the receiver tightly. "Tell me something only you would know." A pause. Then, "When you were 6, you got stuck in a tree trying to impress Sarah Millstone. You cried so hard your mom had to call the fire department." That detail was true. I never told anyone but Uncle Ray. He teased me about it for years. "Danny," the voice said again, almost pleading, "come get me before it finds me." I didn't realize I was crying until a tear hit the receiver. I can't," I said. Then came the shift. The voice dropped its human tone, became something colder, thicker, like syrup over gravel. "You were doing so well," it hissed, "but you're going to ruin it." The phone slammed down from the other end. I yanked the cord from the wall again. The next morning the scarecrow had lowered its arm, but it wasn't back to its original position. Now both arms were pointing down, straight toward the earth at its feet. At first I thought it was just weird. Then I realized it was pointing at something buried. The morning air felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. The scarecrow stood in the same spot, but its posture had changed. Both arms hung low now, rigid and unnatural, pointing straight down at the earth like it was demanding a grave be dug right there and then. I did not like the implication. After everything, the cornfield whispering, the scarecrow snacking at midnight, the void cow. This should have been Old Hat. But somehow the stillness of that morning unsettled me more than any night encounter. It was the silence, thick, expectant. I didn't have a rule about digging where the scarecrow pointed, but after the Friday meat pit incident, I wasn't inclined to tempt fate. So naturally, I did the responsible thing. I went inside and ignored it completely. Instead, I distracted myself with minor chores. I replaced the batteries in my flashlight, rechecked the locks, brushed my teeth with a vengeance, like oral hygiene could keep the horrors at bay. By dusk, I finally caved. Armed with a trowel, I walked to the scarecrow and began to dig. Only a little, just to prove there was nothing there. A few inches in, my trowel struck something. Fabric. My blood went cold. I brushed away the dirt with shaking fingers. There was a shirt, flannel, red and gray, same as what the scarecrow wore. A sleeve, a straw-stuffed wrist, and then to my absolute horror, I realized the scarecrow above me was gone. I shot to my feet, scanning the field. Empty post, no scarecrow. I backed away slowly toward the house, keeping my eyes on the field like it might lunge at me. Once I hit the porch steps, I turned and ran inside, slammed the door, locked it. Deadbolt, chain, chair under the knob. Then I turned off every light and stood in the dark, listening. The silence returned. And then a knock. Just one. A soft, slow tap at the front door. I didn't move. Then it came again. 2 knocks this time. Slower. More deliberate. I crept toward the peephole, praying I wouldn't see anything, but also knowing I would. I looked. At first I thought the porch was empty, just shadows. Porch railing, wind chimes not moving. Then I leaned closer and saw it. A face inches from the peephole. Not human. Sackcloth, button eyes, rotted stitches curling into a smile. The scarecrow, up close, looking in. I stumbled back and tripped over the dining chair, landed flat on my back, gasping. I scrambled across the floor until my back hit the far wall. I stared at the door, heart pounding. It knocked again. Not hard, not angry, just patient. And then it spoke, in my voice. "Let me in, Danny." I didn't answer. "Please, it's cold out here." Then silence. For 10 long minutes, nothing happened. I stayed frozen on the floor, holding the shotgun like it was a teddy bear. I didn't blink, didn't breathe, just listened. Then came the sound of footsteps, slow crunching across the gravel, fading. I crawled to the window, lifted the curtain just a crack. The scarecrow was walking down the driveway, limping slightly, still smiling. It stopped by the oak tree and collapsed, right at the spot it had pointed to earlier. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even move, just sat in the kitchen with the rule sheet in one hand and the flashlight in the other. By sunrise, the scarecrow was back on its post, but its head was turned. Now it was facing the house, watching me. The moment the sun crested the hills and threw light across that stitched-up face, I knew I was done playing caretaker. I didn't care what rules said what. I didn't care if the cows started speaking Latin or the scarecrow started doing yoga in the fields. I was getting the hell off that farm. I stuffed my duffel bag with the essentials, clothes, phone, flashlight, the shotgun, and 3 cans of chili that had somehow become my emotional support food. I tossed in the folded rule sheet, too, because if I was going to get eaten by whatever lurked out here, I wanted someone to at least know I tried to follow instructions. I slammed the bag into the passenger seat of Uncle Ray's rusted Ford pickup, climbed in, and turned the key. The engine coughed once, then again, then made a sound like a dying goat and went dead. "Come on," I muttered, trying again. Click, click, nothing. "Of course," I said, slapping the wheel. "You can feed a scarecrow midnight snacks, but you can't get a working alternator." I jumped out and popped the hood, pretending I knew what I was looking at. Spoiler alert, I didn't. Everything looked fine. No chewed wires, no demonic runes burned into the battery. Just a perfectly fine engine refusing to cooperate. I gave it one more try and then stomped back to the house for the keys to the ATV I'd seen in the barn. Halfway there, I paused, looked back. The road that led away from the farm had changed. It still looked like a road. Same gravel, same ruts, but it didn't seem to end. I could see it winding through the trees, but it just kept going and going, too far for how it should look, like it was stretching, unfolding itself. I walked toward it, pack slung over one shoulder, shotgun held tight. With every step, a strange pressure built in my ears, like climbing a mountain too fast. At the end of the gravel drive, I took one step onto the road. That's when the wind stopped. No birdsong, no rustling corn, just me and the sound of my own breathing. I walked 10 paces, 20, 30, still the same road. Nothing changed, except I stopped, looked around, and realized I was back at the house. I hadn't turned around. I hadn't doubled back. I had walked straight, but somehow I was standing on the front lawn again, staring at the porch steps. The scarecrow was watching me, still facing the house. Now its head was tilted slightly to the side, mocking me, like it knew. I didn't try again, not right then. I just backed up onto the porch and sat down hard. I rested my head in my hands, laughing the kind of laugh that comes right before a breakdown. "You win," I said aloud. "Farm 1, Danny 0. The screen door creaked behind me. I shot up, Turned around, no one there. I checked every lock again, every window, the cellar, all secure. Then I checked the rule sheet. It was the same, 11 rules. But the ink looked darker, fresher, like someone had rewritten it overnight. I turned it over. There was a new note in red ink. You can't leave until your shift is over. Shift? What was this, a supernatural temp job? I circled the kitchen once, thinking, trying to put the puzzle together. Uncle Ray said a week, maybe 2. I'd been here 6 days. Maybe I just had to survive the rest of it, whatever it was. The sun was going down, again. I counted the cows, 9. The 10th one didn't return, small mercies. That night I placed a meatball on a paper plate and slid it to the scarecrow's post from a safe distance. I didn't stick around to see what happened. Just before midnight I heard the cornfield whisper my name again. But this time it didn't sound seductive. It sounded angry, like it knew I tried to leave. When I was a kid, I used to think attics were full of secrets. Pirates' maps, dusty chests, lost diaries from long-dead relatives who'd left behind cryptic warnings and spooky puzzles. Turns out I was more right than I'd like. The attic in Uncle Ray's farmhouse had been calling to me, not in a supernatural whisper through the walls kind of way, but in the slow drip of curiosity. And after everything that had happened, I couldn't shake the feeling that the answers I needed weren't out in the corn or buried beneath oak trees, but up above me, just past that rickety wooden ladder. I waited until morning. Broad daylight. If there were answers to be found, I wanted sunlight on my side. The attic entrance was in the hallway near the back bedrooms. I pulled the string, and the ladder unfolded with a slow groan that echoed like a dying animal. Fitting. I climbed slowly, flashlight clipped to my belt, heart pounding like it wanted out. The attic smelled of old wood, mildew, and time. Dust floated like ash in the air. The floor creaked beneath me as I crawled across it, ducking under low beams. Most of it was junk. Boxes of yellowed tax forms, cracked photo frames, empty mason jars stacked like they were part of a forgotten ritual. And then, near the far end, I found the trunk. It wasn't locked, just latched with a leather strap, worn smooth from use. I opened it and found photographs, hundreds of them, black and white, color. Some faded into pinkish hues from age. Most of them were of the farm. Different seasons, different angles, different decades. Some had people. I recognized Uncle Ray in at least 24 of them. He looked exactly the same. Same face, same mustache, same flannel shirt. In one photo, he was standing by the barn. In another, holding a piglet and smiling. In yet another, waving next to a different scarecrow, taller with a stitched smile even wider than the current one. And then I saw something that made my stomach twist into a sailor's knot. Other people, young men. In each photo, always just one, always around my age, sometimes helping in the field, sometimes standing near the cows. One was even pointing at the oak tree, grinning like he didn't know he was part of something awful. Each guy looked just different enough from the last, but the pattern was undeniable. Caretakers, sitters, replacements. I flipped to the back of one photo. Scribbled in faded ink, Spring Henry, 1983. Another, Fall Marcus, 1991. A third, Danny? No date, just my name with a question mark. I sat back on my heels and tried to breathe. How many? How long had this been happening? And more importantly, where were they now? I kept going, digging deeper into the chest. Beneath the photos was a bundle of folded papers, letters written by hand, some stained and crumpled. Most were addressed to Raymond Harris. A few ended with lines like, "Please stop this. It wasn't worth it. You said they wouldn't remember." I found one note sealed in a Ziploc bag. On it, shaky handwriting read, "If you're reading this, you probably look like the rest of us. Get out now if you can. If you can't, feed the scarecrow. It buys you time." My stomach dropped. I wasn't just helping on a farm. I was part of some cursed relay race. One poor idiot after another running the same doomed lap while Ray sat untouched by time. Immortal? Protected? Cursed? I didn't know. But I was officially done being confused. I was angry now and scared, mostly scared. I climbed down from the attic, carefully carrying one of the photos. Uncle Ray with a different caretaker, a man who could have been my brother if you squinted. I taped it beside the fridge next to the rules. Let the house know I was onto it. That night I made dinner. I didn't feed the scarecrow, not at midnight, not at all. Let's just say I wanted to see what would happen, and I found out. Because at exactly 3:03 a.m., I woke up to the sound of the porch boards creaking and something breathing inside the house. I didn't want to move. Lying there in bed, blanket pulled up to my chin, shotgun resting across my lap like a favorite pet. Every part of me screamed, "Do not move." The breathing wasn't coming from outside. It was in the hallway. It was wet, wheezy, like a vacuum hose slurping up soup. I held my breath and listened. A slow step, then another. Each footfall creaked the old wood, moving closer to my bedroom door. I aimed the shotgun at the door and flicked the safety off, finger tight on the trigger. A shadow broke across the hallway light. Not a man. Too tall. Too thin. Its shape shifted as it moved, like burlap filled with water instead of straw. It stopped right at my door. Didn't knock, didn't speak, just breathed. Then it kept walking. The hallway creaked as the thing shuffled toward the stairs, slowly, deliberately. After the sound of the front door opening and closing, I let out the breath I'd been holding for what felt like a century. Sunrise took forever. When it finally arrived, I checked the porch. No footprints, just wet straw on the steps. I tried to tell myself I was still in control, still safe if I followed the rules, even if I bent them now and then. But that illusion cracked like glass around 10 a.m. It started to rain. That wouldn't be weird on its own, of course, except it wasn't water. It was red. Thick drops pattered against the window panes like paint. I stepped outside, shielding my eyes with my arm. The rain fell in sticky, sluggish blobs. I touched one and immediately recoiled. Warm, metallic, too thick. I didn't need a lab to tell me what it was. It was blood. It coated the fields, dripped off the roof in long, slow rivulets, and soaked the scarecrow, turning its shirt a deep crimson. The cows screamed. Yes, screamed. I ran to the barn to check on them, slipping in the mud as the ground turned into a crimson slush. Inside, the cows huddled in the far corner, mooing, panicked, trying to push through the wooden walls like they could phase through them if they just believed hard enough. But one cow stood alone, facing me, the one with the gash. It was smiling. Its wound was gone now, but in its place were stitches, thick ropey ones like a baseball sewn by someone blindfolded. They ran up its side and across its neck, and its eyes weren't right. They weren't bovine anymore, they were human. Brown, my brown. It took a step forward. I slammed the barn door shut and braced it with a plank, panting. "What the hell is happening?" I whispered. Back at the house, the rain had finally stopped. The sky cleared like nothing had happened. Birds chirped again. The grass sparkled, still wet with red. And then I saw them. Figures, at the edge of the cornfield, maybe 5 of them, just standing, watching. They were too far away to see clearly, but I could tell they were tall, dressed in rags or something looser, darker. Their heads were wrong, lumpy, misshapen. One of them tilted theirs at a slow, jerky angle, too far. I backed up toward the porch, keeping my eyes on them. The scarecrow remained still on its post, but something new had appeared at its feet. A bundle of cloth. I approached slowly, shotgun raised. It was a shirt, one of mine, folded neatly, and on top of it, a single tooth, human molar. I was so focused on the shirt that I didn't realize the figures in the corn had moved. Now there were 7, closer. I sprinted back to the house, locked everything, and pulled the shades. That night I didn't sleep. I just sat at the kitchen table, shotgun in front of me, staring at the rule sheet and wondering, who made these rules? And why do they keep adding more? Just for me. That night I heard the root cellar humming. It was low at first, almost like a vibration, the kind of frequency that sits just below what your ears can register, but rattles in your bones anyway. I sat upright in bed and knew instantly what it was. Something had woken up. I crept through the hallway with the flashlight, shotgun in hand, and stopped at the cellar door. The humming was louder now, clearer. I could hear rhythm in it, cadence, not a sound, a chant, Voices, layered and strange, too many syllables in each word. I leaned in just a little, and something pressed back against the door. Not a knock, not a bang, a push, gentle, like a hand or maybe several softly pressing outward. The door creaked on its hinges, the handle trembled like it was straining to twist on its own. Rule number 5, stay out of the root cellar, no matter what you hear from it. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed a roll of duct tape, and did my best impression of an exorcist/contractor. I taped that door shut 6 different ways and shoved the heaviest dresser I could find in front of it. Then I sat down and watched the hallway until morning. When I finally worked up the nerve to check it again, the tape was untouched, but the humming was gone, and on the floor in front of the door was another note, not taped, not stuck, just lying there like it had always been. Don't feed him, that's my job. No signature. I knew who left it, the Scarecrow, because later that morning I found something waiting on the porch steps. A key, old, rusted, the kind that would unlock a chest or maybe a very old door. It was lying on a square of black cloth. Beneath it, a circle had been drawn in chalk directly on the wood, surrounded by symbols I couldn't recognize. I didn't touch the key. Instead, I followed my gut and checked the Scarecrow. It was still up on the post, arms outstretched. But its chest pouch, the one I'd noticed before, was open. A long tear down the front, as if someone had reached in and taken something. And its head, it was gone. Clean off. No sign of it anywhere, just a jagged stump where the sack had been stitched into the neck. Bits of straw poked out, fluttering in the breeze. At noon I walked the property, counting cows. Back to 9. The stitched one was gone, and no trace of it. No tracks, no blood, just absence. The barn smelled like rot, thick and sweet. I opened the feed locker and nearly threw up. Inside was a pile of something dark and wet. It took me a moment to realize what I was looking at. Straw soaked in blood, packed tightly into a human shape. Its chest had been hollowed out. Whatever it was, or used to be, had been left there for me to find. Above it, written on the wall in dark, greasy letters, "He's hungry, but not for you." That was the first time I actually considered leaving without my things, without food, without telling anyone, just running. But I knew it wouldn't work. I'd already tried the road. I knew how this place worked. It kept you. And now it was showing me the layers, the ritual beneath the field, the being beneath the cellar. The rules were not to protect me from the house. They were to protect the house from what's under it. And me? I wasn't just a sitter. I was part of the maintenance crew. By nightfall, the Scarecrow had its head back, not the old one. This one was bigger, different sack, different smile, but the same eyes, mine. The house had been quiet for over a day, and that scared me more than the chaos. I'd gotten used to the sounds, the whispers, the hoofbeats, the midnight knocks. But now nothing, not a breeze, not a creak, just stillness. Even the cows were quiet. They barely moved, standing out in the pasture like statues in a forgotten diorama. That was the morning I decided to clean. Yeah, I know how that sounds, but when your reality is stitched up, scarecrows and cult cows, cleaning becomes a weird form of control. Something to make the house feel human again. I started in the kitchen, wiped counters, mopped the floor. Then I moved to the fridge. Something about it had been bugging me. Not just the list, the fridge itself. It didn't hum like it used to. And there was this faint draft behind it, like cold air was leaking out. From the wall. On a whim, I decided to pull it out. It took some effort. The thing had probably never been moved in 20 years. Layers of dust and grime dragged along with it as I inched it away from the wall. And there it was, a mirror, not a small one. A full-length slab fixed right into the drywall, framed with rotted molding. It shouldn't have been there. There was no indication of anything behind the fridge from the other side of the wall. But there it was, smooth, clean, wrong. I stared at myself, and then my reflection smiled. I didn't. I swear I didn't. But the me in the mirror grinned, wide and slow, like he'd been waiting for me to show up. His eyes were black, his skin pale, and his mouth was stitched, not shut, but around the smile. Black thread crisscrossed the edges of his lips like barbed wire trying to hold back laughter. Then he lifted his hand and pointed. I didn't move. He pointed again, down toward the corner of the mirror. That's when I saw it. Scratches. Small, jagged lines, barely noticeable unless the light hit them right. Words. New rules. I leaned in, reading them slowly. Number 12. If your reflection ever smiles first, cover every mirror before sundown. Number 13. If the house becomes quiet, it's listening. Don't speak. Number 14. If your name disappears from your ID, burn it, quickly. Number 15. Never turn around if you hear your voice behind you. Number 16. The rules will keep coming until the list is full. You'll know when it's full. I stepped back, heart hammering in my chest. How many rules were there going to be? The mirror fogged up as if something was breathing from the other side. I reached out against every ounce of common sense and wiped the fog away. My reflection was back to normal. No stitches, no smile, just me. But scratched in the fog, just before it faded, was one final message. We're almost ready. I shoved the fridge back against the wall, harder than I needed to. The rubber gasket thumped loud, echoing through the house. Then something else fell, behind me. A small photo had slipped off the fridge and fluttered to the floor. I picked it up. It was a picture of Uncle Ray. Young, smiling, standing next to a man I didn't recognize but who looked exactly like me, down to the cowlick. On the back in faded pen, Shift 8, Danny. That question mark again. Someone, or something, was choosing us, cycling through us. Like employees on a rotating schedule. Each one left a little closer to breaking the chain, maybe, or becoming part of it. I taped the photo next to the rule list again, just like the last one. But now I saw something else. Something I hadn't noticed before. The masking tape holding the original rule sheet. It wasn't tape anymore. It was thread. Stitched into the door. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of fear. Because I kept thinking about that final rule scratched in the mirror. You'll know when the list is full. And in the back of my mind I wondered, what happens when it is? I stayed inside all day after the mirror. Didn't check the cows. Didn't touch the scarecrow. Didn't even bother heating up the chili. Instead, I sat in the living room with the curtains drawn, the shotgun cradled in my lap, and every light on like I was afraid of the dark for the first time since I was 5. Around noon, the silence started again. It crept in slowly like a fog. The wind outside died, the birds vanished, even the floorboards stopped groaning. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I remembered rule number 13, if the house becomes quiet, it's listening. Don't speak, so I didn't. I wrote notes to myself on a pad of paper. Don't say a word, don't even whisper. I sat still for hours, barely breathed. Around sunset, the house let out one long creak. The silence lifted slightly. A fly buzzed somewhere near the window. The trap was over, for now. I decided I needed air. Just a moment. Something to shake the pressure off. I stepped onto the porch, shotgun still in hand. The sky was dull orange, clouds hanging low like smoke. The cornfield rustled gently. Not unnaturally, just like it used to before everything went sideways. I stood there a moment. Then I heard it. A voice. Not distant, not echoing. Clear. Danny? I froze. Danny, it's me. It's Sarah. My heart stuttered. Sarah Millstone. She'd been my best friend growing up. The one I had climbed a tree for in the 3rd grade and cried when I got stuck. The one who died in a car crash senior year. It was her voice. I'd know it anywhere. Laughter in it. The smile behind the words. I'm in the corn, Danny. Come talk to me. The corn shifted, and then I remembered rule number 3. If the cornfield whispers, don't listen. But this wasn't just a whisper anymore. This was a conversation, and I was losing the argument with myself. The voice spoke again. You're doing so good. Better than the last one. I gripped the shotgun tighter. A shadow moved just inside the first few rows of stalks. Sarah continued. You don't have to be scared. You were always the brave one. She paused, then softer. Do you remember what you told me at the creek? About how you thought the world had secrets? She was referring to a real memory, one I never told anyone else. Not even Uncle Ray. I took one step toward the corn, then another. The wind picked up. The rose shivered. A figure stepped into the path between stalks. It looked like Sarah. Same blonde hair, same summer dress, same crooked smile. But her eyes were wrong, too wide, too still. And her arms hung just a little too low, as if the elbows had slid down the bones. "Come closer, Danny." I raised the shotgun. She smiled wider. "You won't shoot me." My finger trembled on the trigger, and that's when she glitched, just for a moment. Her whole body stuttered like a bad video. Her dress flickered between blue and red. Her face bent inward, warping unnaturally like the pixels were being pulled apart from behind her eyes. And then she was gone. No flash, no sound, just an empty row of corn. The field fell silent again. Then something giggled, deep inside the stalks. High-pitched, childlike, but wrong, so very wrong. I backed toward the house, didn't speak, didn't blink. Inside, I slammed the door and locked everything. Then I checked the mirror behind the fridge. The scratch rules were still there, but a new one had appeared beneath them. Number 17. Don't follow the dead into the corn. They don't want to come back alone. I stared at my reflection. He stared back, and this time he didn't smile. He just nodded. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't, but because I shouldn't. Something was shifting again. Not in the corn, not in the house, in the barn. The cows were restless. I could hear them from my bedroom. Low, nervous groans like they were trying to whisper secrets in a language I wasn't meant to understand. At 2:11 a.m., something heavy slammed against the barn door. I jumped up, grabbed the shotgun, and bolted to the window. Outside, the moon cast silver light across the field. The barn was moving, not shaking from wind, not trembling from thunder. It was breathing. The roof expanded with every inhale, sagged on every exhale. Boards creaked. Something growled low and steady, like a furnace that had learned how to hate. I didn't want to go out there, I really didn't. But I'd been on this farm long enough to know that ignoring a problem only made it hungrier. I threw on my boots, jammed shells into the shotgun, and stepped outside. The barn loomed like a crouched beast in the dark. I approached slowly, flashlight beam shaking with my hands. When I reached the door, I stopped. The lock was gone, blown clean off. Metal twisted, wood splintered. I pushed the door open. What I saw inside is still burned into the back of my eyes. The cows were gone, all of them. Not a trace, no blood, no hoofprints, just hay, wet and dark. And something else, something that turned when I entered. It had once been a cow, maybe, or maybe several, twisted together. A mass of stitched hide and broken bone, standing taller than any barn should have allowed. Its face was a mess of snouts and teeth. Its eyes blinked sideways. One had a pupil, the other didn't. Its legs bent in 3 places and the back hooves dragged like dead weights behind it. When it saw me, it let out a noise I will never forget. A moo, long and distorted, warped by agony and something worse. Joy. It charged. I dove sideways as it crashed through the door behind me, splintering it like matchsticks. I rolled across the dirt and came up aiming. Fired once, hit its leg. It stumbled, fired again, missed. It screamed again, less animal this time, more like laughter. It limped toward the cornfield, tearing through rows as stalks fell like grass before a hurricane. And then it was gone. The silence afterward was worse. I walked back into the barn, heart racing, mouth dry. Where the monster had stood, something had been left behind in the hay, a piece of paper soaking wet. I picked it up. It was a page from the rule list, torn clean from the fridge. On the back, written in ink that ran like blood in the rain. Number 18, if the barn door opens itself, don't go in. Not everything wants to be seen. Too late. I was starting to realize these rules weren't just warnings. They were traps. Guidelines laid out after mistakes had already been made. Uncle Ray hadn't written them all down. He'd added them as things happened, as if the house learned from every failure. And I was the next chapter in its education. I returned to the porch, covered in dirt, straw, and fear. The scarecrow was missing again. Just the post stood, swaying gently in the breeze. At sunrise it returned, back on the post. New head. This one was human, wrapped in burlap, stitched in a crisscross pattern like a butcher's leftover, and on its chest in thick red thread, stitched letters. Welcome back. I looked down at my own chest. My shirt had a tear, right over my heart. A square had been cut out cleanly, same shape and size as the Scarecrow's stitched message, and beneath it, drawn on my skin in black marker, Shift 9. I didn't remember falling asleep, but I woke up at the kitchen table, my head resting next to the shotgun, the rule sheet crumpled beneath my hand. Morning light crept in through the windows, too soft to feel safe. I sat up slowly, heart pounding like I'd just run a marathon in my sleep. My shirt was still torn, the square of missing fabric still gone, but the ink across my chest, Shift 9, had smudged slightly, like someone had written it on me while I slept, and their hand had trembled. I peeled myself off the chair and checked the mirror behind the fridge. The stitched smile version of me wasn't there, just me, pale, wide-eyed, and very much awake. But the mirror had changed again. Below the previous scratched-in rules, another had appeared. Number 19. You'll be offered the truth. Take it, but never offer it back. I didn't know what that meant yet, but I had a bad feeling I was about to find out. Later that afternoon, while checking the barn for clues, I found the trapdoor. It was beneath a rotting pile of hay near the back corner, a rusted ring set into the floorboards, just visible under the straw. I pulled it open, half expecting to find another scarecrow or stitched-together cow abomination waiting below. Instead, I found stairs, wooden, steep, leading down into dry earth and silence. I brought the flashlight, shotgun, and no sense of self-preservation. The cellar was narrow. The walls were reinforced with old beams, dust thick enough to taste. At the bottom, I found a wooden door marked with a carved symbol, an eye with 6 lashes all pointing downward. I opened it. Inside was a room, small, lined with shelves full of mason jars and old tools, and at the center, on a wooden table, was a book, a journal bound in thick leather, covered in dust. I opened it. First page. If you've made it this far, then I'm already gone. Uncle Ray's handwriting. His voice echoed in my memory. Just need you to watch the farm, Danny, a week, maybe 2. The journal detailed everything, the rules, the history, the pact. According to Ray, the land had always been wrong. Back in the late 1800s, a group of settlers found this stretch of Iowa, fertile, rich, and untouched. They built a town, planted crops. Then people started disappearing. Children wandered into the cornfield and never came back. Men turned up dead, stuffed with hay and posed like dolls. That's when the first rules were written, not for survival, but for containment, to trap the thing that lived beneath. The green mouth beneath, Ray called it, a god. Or maybe just something that thought it was a god, something ancient and hungry. They couldn't kill it, so they fed it instead, one life every cycle, a sacrifice offered through symbols, routines, and blood. Ray had inherited the farm like a prison warden inherits a cell block. His job wasn't to grow crops. It was to keep the gate shut. And the scarecrow? It wasn't just decoration, it was the key. Stuff it, feed it, watch its hands. When it moves, something's changed. Follow the rules, and it sleeps. I flipped through more pages. Ray had tried to quit once, tried to leave. But the farm followed him. People around him died. Buildings burned down. Letters arrived with no postmark but written in his own hand. That's when he accepted it. He added new rules, built new traps. And now he was gone, vanished like the others before me, leaving me with the mess. I should have burned the book. Instead, I kept reading. Near the back, he'd written, "They always send someone who looks like me every 20 years or so. You're the 9th, or the 100th. Hard to tell anymore." He'd scribbled beneath it, "I'm sorry, Danny. I didn't choose you. The farm did." I closed the book and walked back up the stairs into a world that felt a little smaller. The sun was setting, again, and the scarecrow? It had climbed down from the post. It stood by the oak tree, waiting. The scarecrow didn't move as I approached the oak tree. It stood there with perfect stillness, head tilted just enough to give me the impression it was listening or waiting for me to fail. I held Ray's journal tight in one hand, flashlight in the other, shotgun slung over my shoulder like a useless afterthought. The sun dipped low, bleeding across the field in streaks of orange and red. the light hit the Scarecrow's new burlap face just right and cast a shadow that didn't make sense. A second silhouette, taller, with too many limbs stretching the wrong way. I kept walking anyway. Rule-breaking had become a habit, rule-bending if I wanted to sound brave. When I reached the tree, I saw it. The disturbed earth, the spot where I'd dug each Friday, the meat hole, the offering pit. It was open again. But I hadn't dug it. This time it had opened itself. A circle of churned soil surrounded the pit. At the center, the hole yawned wide, dark, deep, wet, like a mouth. The smell rising from it wasn't decay. It was sweet, honey mixed with rot. My legs went weak, and I nearly dropped the journal. Then came the sound. Movement from inside, slithering, dragging. Something was climbing out. I should have run, screamed, fired the shotgun blindly into the hole. Instead, I stood frozen, eyes locked on the edge of the pit as fingers emerged, long, thin, jointed the wrong way. Each digit ended in a needle-like tip, stained black. They gripped the earth gently, reverently, like the creature didn't want to disturb its own entrance. Then I remembered something from Ray's journal. If it breaches the earth, bait it, feed it misdirection, offer meat, but not yours. I backed away and dug into my coat pocket, fingers scrambling for the wrapped piece of smoked sausage I'd packed days ago. It was half mashed, a little moldy, and it reeked. But it was meat, and it wasn't me. I tossed it toward the hole. It landed with a soft thud. The fingers paused, then retreated. Not all the way, just enough to say, not tonight. The pit breathed again, a slow exhale of warm, damp air that stank of regret. I didn't wait for a thank you. I turned and ran. The Scarecrow was gone. The field was empty. I reached the house and slammed the door shut, every lock clicking like it had been waiting for me to come home. In the kitchen, I opened the fridge, just to prove to myself it was still real, still humming, and found a new note taped to the rule list. Fresh ink. Black. Sharp. Good instincts. You've bought time. I pulled the fridge aside and checked the mirror. More rules had been scratched in, no numbers now, just one line. The soil beneath the oak is not a grave, it's a doorway. And beneath it, smaller, almost hidden in the corner. There will come a night it cannot be fed. When that night comes, you must choose. That was the first time I realized there wouldn't be a rescue. No one was coming. The road didn't lead out. The phone didn't dial out. And my week, my shift, it didn't end. It just restarted. Later that night, around 3 a.m., I heard the whisper again. Only one word this time, from the cellar, from the mirror, from the corn, I couldn't tell. But it echoed inside my head like a prayer I'd heard in another life. Soon. The next morning, the Scarecrow was back on its post. Its face was blank again, but its chest pouch bulged. I didn't want to look, but I did. Inside was a small rolled piece of paper. I opened it slowly. One sentence, handwritten in red ink. When the meat runs out, the skinning begins. I stared at the paper in my hand until the words blurred. When the meat runs out, the skin begins. It felt less like a warning and more like a threat. Or maybe a schedule, the kind of thing you etch on the inside of a coffin lid. I stuffed it in the pocket of Ray's journal and stepped back from the Scarecrow. It didn't move, but I knew now that it didn't have to. The Scarecrow didn't protect me. It didn't judge me. It didn't even care if I lived. It measured me. That afternoon, I took inventory of everything I had left. One flashlight, half a box of shotgun shells, a few days' worth of food, and the kind of paranoia that made you check your reflection twice to see if it was blinking wrong. I flipped through Ray's journal again, looking for something I'd missed. At the very end, tucked inside the back cover, I found a folded scrap of paper that hadn't been there before. My name was written across it, not in Ray's handwriting, in mine. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single line. Number 20, bury the Scarecrow with your name in its chest. I read it once, twice, then a third time, just to be sure it really said what I thought it said. I laughed, sharp and bitter. Great, now we're making up rules, that's fun. But the more I stared at it, the more real it felt. Not optional. I was the final rule. Not some idea, not a whisper. Me. I had to write my name, put it inside the scarecrow, bury it, and hope whatever ran beneath the soil accepted the offering. I didn't know if that meant I'd die or live or become the next stitched-up guardian out there on the post. But I also knew I was out of time. I grabbed a piece of paper and a marker, wrote my name slowly, Daniel Harris. I folded the page, took it to the field. The scarecrow was still there, still watching. I reached into its chest pouch. The fabric felt damp, warm, like a living thing. Inside were scraps, old names, some stained, some torn, some still legible. I saw Marcus, Henry, Ben, Caleb, Danny. All of them written in the same desperate script, all of them left behind, and all of them I failed? I pushed my name in with the rest, then I pulled the scarecrow down. It didn't resist, it didn't move, just slumped like an empty suit. I carried it to the oak tree and began to dig. The soil gave way easily. It had been dug so many times it practically remembered. As I dug, the wind picked up. But it wasn't angry. It was sad, mourning. I placed the scarecrow inside, covered it with dirt. Each shovel of earth felt heavier than the last. When I was done, I stepped back. The oak creaked in the wind. The earth pulsed once, twice, and fell still. Then I heard something behind me, not loud, not sudden, just a voice, a familiar voice. "Hey there, Danny." I turned. Uncle Ray stood at the edge of the field. Same flannel shirt, same kind eyes, like he'd just come back from a grocery run. Except his shadow didn't fall the right way, and when he smiled, I saw stitches in his gums. "You did good," he said. I raised the shotgun. "Stay where you are." He chuckled. "If I meant you harm, you wouldn't still be breathing. Trust me." "What is this place?" I asked. Ray shrugged. "It's a lock. You were the key. And now the door's shut again." He nodded at the oak tree. "Until the next one." I lowered the shotgun slowly. "So that's it? I just keep it locked?" "For now." He turned to leave. "Ray," I said. He stopped. "I wrote my name," I said. "Does that mean I'm part of it now?" Ray didn't look back. "You always were." Then he walked into the corn and disappeared. That night I sat on the porch until sunrise. The cows returned. The barn rebuilt itself somehow. The mirror behind the fridge was clean. The scarecrow's post stood empty, and on the fridge the rule sheet was gone. In its place was a single line etched into the door with a knife. "Remember the rules. Someone else will need them." It's been 3 weeks since I buried the scarecrow, I think. Time doesn't feel the same anymore. Some days stretch like taffy. Others blink past me like a skipped record. I tried to leave again, took the truck, the ATV, even tried walking. Every path leads back to the farmhouse, always the same way. I step onto the road, follow it for miles, and somehow end up standing in the yard with dirt on my boots and no memory of turning around. The farm keeps me now, or maybe I keep it. The rules are gone from the fridge, but they're still in my head, every one of them, as clear as if I'd written them myself. And new ones show up sometimes, not on paper, not scratched into mirrors, in my dreams. Every night I see that field, the oak, the scarecrow, and sometimes I see the others, the ones who came before me. Their names whisper themselves into my ear as I sleep. Sometimes I wake up mumbling them. Sometimes I find those names scratched into the walls when I know I didn't write them. I think they're trying to help, or maybe just warn me. The cows are normal again. As normal as cows on a haunted farm can be. They moo, eat, and stare like they've forgotten everything that happened. But I haven't. Some mornings I still check them twice, just to make sure there are still 9. The scarecrow didn't come back, not right away. But one morning, as I stood at the window sipping my awful, gritty coffee, I saw it, perched on the post again, like it had never left. Same stitched smile, same crooked stance. But this time its chest pouch was sewn shut, tight, like it had nothing left to give. I haven't touched it. I don't feed it. Not anymore. It just stands there, watching the horizon, waiting, maybe for me. Maybe for the next poor fool who gets a call in the middle of the night from a man he barely knows asking him to watch a farm for a week. A week, maybe 2, Ray had said. Yeah, that was the first lie. Here's the truth. This farm is a story on repeat, a curse wrapped in corn and stitched with silence, and me? I'm part of it now, caretaker, warden, witness. Every morning I wake up, walk the perimeter, count the cows, check the locks, listen for whispers. I watch the weather vane and dig by the oak on Fridays. I do all of it. Not because I'm scared anymore, but because it works. Because if I don't, well, you saw what happened the last time the rules were broken. You saw what crawled from the pit. You heard it whisper my name in the voice of someone I loved. You saw the barn breathe, and you know what's down there, waiting. It's always waiting. So yeah, I follow the rules, and maybe one day someone will replace me. Maybe they'll find this journal. Maybe they'll last longer. Maybe not. But I'll leave them the list. I'll carve it into the floorboards if I have to. Because there's one more rule I didn't write down. The one I learned after everything else. The one Ray never told me. Final rule. If the scarecrow comes back, so do you. And every morning now, when the sun rises and the fog lifts, the scarecrow's there, and so am I, watching the field, waiting for the next shift. Hey guys, if you like my videos, please like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it, thanks. And also let me know where y'all are watching from and at what time. I'm curious.